Welcome back to the Lars Show. It is First Amendment Friday, and it is my favorite day of the week because we open up the phone lines and every subject is fair game. I want to talk about tolling and bridges and a lot of stuff that's very, very expensive. Some of the most expensive infrastructure projects in the Pacific Northwest, those are the ones that have to do with transportation, whether it's light rail trains, whether it's bridges or freeways, although we don't seem to build freeways anymore. And this segment of the show is brought to you by 540training.com. Concealed carry, home invasion defense, and personal defense online at 540training.com. John Lee joins me now, retired from his airline pilot job. So I guess you could say he was in mass transit. He's a reporter at Clark County Today and a candidate for the Washington House of Representatives. John, welcome back.
Hey, Lars. Thanks, as always, to be with you and your audience today. Tolling's the issue du jour, my friend.
Well, I wonder if you had the same reaction I did when I saw Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York, who doesn't do a very good job, but, you know, she's a Democrat. What can you expect? And she comes out and says, we're basically killing the tolling plan that they had. And it was insane. I mean, it was saying you have to pay $15 for a car to drive into Manhattan, into parts of Manhattan. And if you're a truck, it's $24 to $36. And clearly they wanted to get a lot of money, and they also wanted to give everybody a disincentive to actually use the roads that they paid for. And I thought, well, I can look at it as good news and say maybe the Northwest will be inspired or constrained by what New York State has just done. Do you think I'm being too naive to imagine that maybe Northwest leadership in both Oregon, Washington, Puget Sound, and Portland will say, yeah, that tolling stuff, probably not a good idea. Maybe we should back off.
Lars, you know me, I'm the eternal optimist, and we now have governors in 2 blue states stepping up and killing congestion tolling programs. So that's something to put a smile on our faces and hope that when the people rise up, these politicians actually pay attention. In the New York City case, they wanted to pick the people's pockets for $1 billion a year that they were going to give to the transit organization, the MTA, and absolutely outrageous. Here in the Northwest, what we are watching, of course, is the I-5 Interstate Bridge. Yep. And while Governor Kotek killed the per-mile congestion tolling program, Greg Johnson and the Interstate 5 Bridge Replacement Program are still demanding tolls to pay for part of the I-5 bridge.
And yet, you and I have pointed out the great many flaws, and these aren't little nitpicky things around the edges. These are things like the Coast Guard, who has to say yes, has not said yes, and they've already said this bridge is, 60, 70, 80 feet too low. And you and I have pointed out that one of the transit stops coming off that bridge is going to be 80 or 100 feet in the air. You know, and then I guess people are going to have to walk up the stairs to the darn thing or wait for an elevator that won't do it. And the funding isn't there, the money isn't there, and yet they seem to just say, well, it's still going to happen anyway. How should we understand that?
Well, it makes no logical sense, number one. Number two, if you look at the transit portion of the $7.5 billion project, they're saying $2 billion. That's absolute insanity for a 3-mile light rail extension that nobody's going to ride. The Clark County Transit Agency, C-Tran, offers express bus service into Portland, and they picked up 2 riders a day going into Portland so that they have a grand total of 525 people using their buses into Portland on the I-5 corridor. There's absolutely no need for high-capacity transit whatsoever as part of the project. So if they killed the light rail part, they could cut $2 billion from the price tag today, and the people would applaud, number one. Number two, they could eliminate the tolling component part of the price tag to go with that and just pay for the bridge itself. So on a lot of ways, from the standpoint of people's pockets, on providing money to pay for something people want, they need to focus on building a bridge that actually relieves traffic congestion, which they're refusing to do. And of course, you and I have talked about that many times. They want to replace an over-congested 3-lane bridge with another 3-lane bridge. It's absolute insanity from a public policy standpoint.
And what you pointed out at Clark County today, travel times with the bridge are projected to double by 2045. So in the next 20 years, it's going to take twice as long to drive the same route that a couple of 100,000 people are traveling on right now.
Yes, and a different aspect of that is they are projecting at the same time that half of rush hour traffic will be stuck going 0 to 20 miles an hour. Well, if you're a green liberal that cares about the environment, you know a plan that has half of vehicles sitting there idling, spewing emissions, that is not a green project. And yet Greg Johnson and his team continue to lie about how green this project is. It's not. It's a total waste of public money on so many levels.
Well, and you've also pointed out that they're building another bridge, $520 million to build a bridge over a wider span of the Columbia River at Hood River. So 520 will build you the bridge there. Now, that bridge isn't as wide as the I-5 bridge, but does $7.5 billion make any sense when that other bridge is being built for less than a tenth of that?
Absolutely not. And in fact, the width of the river between Hood River and White Salmon is slightly wider. And the amazing aspect is they actually are going to build a taller bridge than what Greg Johnson and his team are proposing. So again, you look at $500 million is what Greg Johnson and his team have said the bridge alone will cost, and $520 million in Hood River. Hey, that makes absolute sense. Transportation dollars are scarce. You need to fix roads, repair bridges, do things. It makes no sense to spend 15 times that when the money is needed in so many places around the Portland metro area and, frankly, all around the state of Washington.
By the way, two number questions. You said $7.5 billion. Isn't that the lower end of the estimate, or was I wrong about that? Aren't they projecting this to cost as much as $9 billion?
So you're exactly right, my friend. In December, Greg Johnson told state legislators that the price tag was going up, but he wouldn't have an estimate until later in the year. Here we are 6 months later. We don't know. On Monday, Greg Johnson and his team are meeting with Oregon and Washington legislators. So my hope is he'll reveal the new numbers, but they're going up and it's going to be expensive. And the most logical place they're going to try and get the money is from tolling and borrowing money. Because, as you know, Oregon's already tapped out. They've got a $3 billion funding shortfall for their transportation projects already. And they just need to start talking about cutting aspects of this project rather than increasing the size and the cost of it.
Yeah, and the first thing you could cut is not just the light rail, but what they call the active use, I guess they call it transit and active, is $3.5